I'm Bobby Burton, joined by Jerry Hamilton and Rod Babers of On Texas Football. Time for a little Longhorn live stream this afternoon, talking transfer portal. Final news coming out today of one departure there. We'll also have some recruiting stuff. Jerry's been circling and trying to figure out here of late. First junior day will be next Saturday, a week from tomorrow. Jerry's on top of that for us. Rod Babers, myself, Jerry Hamilton here, along with our producer, Matt Hutchison. This is the Friday afternoon live stream. Jerry and Rod, Amari Niblack, the tight end that came to Texas via the University of Alabama, did not get much playing time. He is the final piece of the departure situation at the University of Texas. Now one of 10 departures overall through this transfer portal timeline. I will say this: 0 starts given up in this transfer portal window by Texas. And also 10 is the fewest number of entrants into the portal of any team in the SEC. How about that? Great job by the Texas Longhorns program overall. Niblack was a guy, people are asking if that's the person I was referring to on Wednesday. Yes, it is. Originally, there were two starters that were going to go in the portal. We told you yesterday that those guys were not going in the portal, and I said there was still one that was going that was of note. Amari Niblack is the one of note. I believe that will be the last one that enters the portal for the Longhorns of scholarship players. Rod B. and Jerry, what do you make of Amari Niblack choosing to head on down the road?
Of all the guys on this list, he's the one guy that I thought would impact the Texas team last season more than they actually did.
Yes.
I mean, he was the guy when he came in for Bama because he had the big plays as a pseudo flex tight end, big receiver, Rod lining up at flex tight end. He was the one guy that I said, man, he's going to make big plays somewhere for Texas. Just never materialized. And so that was the one guy, Jonte Cook, I thought would be in that rotation at receiver. But there are obviously guys more talented than him on the roster with different strengths. But, no starts lost, Rod Babers, out of all these guys. Doesn't mean they're not going to go start other places, by the way. Justice Finkley will sure as hell be a starter at Kansas. And there will be some guys start other places. But, Rod, no starts lost for the Horns.
Yeah, to me, that's part of kind of the natural attrition that takes place now in the new landscape of college football. Every power team is going to lose a certain amount of guys. When you can lose guys who weren't necessarily main contributors for you, and Texas lost some of those guys too, so they're not immune to it. But here you see that I'm with you, Jerry. That was 0 starts. I think for Texas, that just shows you that's kind of just natural, organic attrition that's going to happen. Not very disruptive attrition. But I'm with you. I would say Jonte Cook is one of the guys on this list that the guys I had higher expectations for. Jonte Cook, Sydney Mitchell's on that list as well. Yeah. And Amari Niblack are probably my top 3. And I'm like, actually, probably predicted those guys would have more of an impact on the program. Amari Niblack, I just think it's Gunnar Helm. I mean, Gunnar Helm's ascent is really a big part of why you just didn't need Amari Niblack. Like, you were going to need him if you were going to have a passing threat at tight end, a guy that could beat one-on-one coverage, but it was going to make you predictable, right? Because if Amari Niblack was in the game, you're not having him in there as a blocker because he's not a plus blocker, right? So you got him in as a pass receiver, therefore it would make your offense a little bit more predictable. But when Gunnar Helm became an every down tight end, a guy that could beat one-on-one coverage, a guy that can split the safeties down the seam, a guy that can also threaten you deep. I mean, he provided everything you need. He was a 5-tool tight end for you. I don't think there was a need to supplement the position with a guy like Amari Niblack. And then comes in Juan Davis, who's a plus blocker, not necessarily a plus player in the receiving game, but he's a plus blocker for you. And so, I mean, he provided more of an asset to the offense than Amari Niblack could. So there was really no place for him when you started looking at it. It's to me, so that's not surprising. I'm with you. I thought he would have more of an impact. And some of the plays they had for him, I loved some of the plays the very few times we saw him. But there were some penalties here and there with Amari Niblack, and I just don't think blocking-wise Texas could afford to have a guy like Amari Niblack on the field this season.
Yes, and a lot of those penalties came on special teams. They had to stop playing special teams during the middle of the season because of those penalties he was picking up. A good player overall, though, and a positive on the roster is what I'm told behind the scenes. There are those guys that you worry about being a negative on the culture. I'm told that he was not. Another guy on that list that I think preseason we had higher hopes for was probably Jure Bledsoe. We thought Bledsoe might actually get some playing time if he came up, but he is off now to Mississippi State. Jonte Cook had signed with Washington, but now he is off the board and headed back. Sadir Mitchell on to LSU, among other spots. Tia Savea, by the way, that coming up. He's headed back to Arizona for next season. But all in all, not a bad loss section for the Longhorns.
I'm going to give a rundown real quick of where these guys ended up. Niblack, we're not sure. Sadir Mitchell, LSU. Finkley, Kansas. Javion Cole, Arizona, with his former San Jose State coach. Savea, Arizona. Where did Aaron Bryan end up?
Vanderbilt,
SEC. Akana, was Akana Utah or BYU?
I think it was BYU, but I'd have to go back and look.
Gillette, Mississippi State. Bledsoe, Mississippi State. And Jonte Cook is now nowhere.
So how many of them ended up at other Power 5 schools?
I believe all of them will end up at or a Niblack will end up, unless he just goes home to USF.
Yeah,
because he's from
9 of the 10.
See, that's healthy attrition to me.
Yeah, that's and the only one that won't is Jonte Cook.
Yeah. See, that's not because of physical skill, talent. We know that's other issues going on. But that to me, that's a healthy attrition. And the reason I say it because it's when other Power 5 programs covet the guys who didn't necessarily penetrate your rotations or penetrate your starting lineup at all. They just couldn't, not because they didn't have the skill set. That's why they were at Texas, but because I think you have so much talent already stacked ahead of them. That's for a lot of these guys. I think that's, like I said, that's when you're trying to churn the roster every season and upgrade as much as possible. That's healthy attrition. When your guys have to downgrade and they have to go to a lower level, nothing wrong with that. That's good for their journey, but it does show you that maybe there was a talent deficiency there. Maybe you over recruited a guy, potentially. Just not necessarily all the time, but just potentially. If a lot of your guys are not being coveted by other power programs.
I just got to say this. 10 is not very many compared to what A&M had 23, Alabama 24, Georgia had in the teens.
14.
It is the least amount of any roster. And here's the reality of it. Texas already has one of, if not the best rosters in the SEC. I mean, right? Overall, you just had number one class. You had 4 consecutive top 5 classes. So it's not like you don't have guys you want or that are wanted. And so I think Sark and his group and everybody involved, really from behind the scenes, whether it's Brandon Harris or Chris Gilbert or John Michael Jones or any of the assistant coaches, as well as folks in NIL, everybody involved deserves a little hat tip from Texas fans because the roster is going to be there. If the cut that hurts the deepest is Amari Niblack, I think it's Amari Niblack and Sadir Mitchell, by the way. Those are the 2 that cut the deepest. You did a pretty good job because you didn't lose a start, and you don't know if those guys were even going to start this coming year or not, anyways. And so I think it's pretty strong overall.
Hey, Bobby, I want to throw a question to Rod because we talked about it this morning on Coffee and Football. But, Rod, one of our big topics of discussion this morning was just how good this Texas pass rush may be next year.
Yeah.
Colin Simmons returns. Trey Moore now returns. Anthony Hill returns. Brad Spence transfers from Arkansas. A good pass rusher at the linebacker spot. Ethan Burke back. Colton Vosick, if he can stay healthy. Obviously, Texas has their zero tilt shades taken care of in the portal with Cole Brevard and Travis Shaw. And Shaw does have some explosive upfield ability, but not necessarily as a pass rusher, more disruptor. if Texas finds one more D lineman, they need two, but finds one disruptive D lineman in the portal. I mean, Rod, talk about the pass rush next year. I mean, this is going to be, to me, what I was talking about, Rod, is Texas is going to be able to rush the passer from multiple spots next year. Edge spots, 2 linebacker spots. I mean, this is a little different what we're going to see next year, even from this year, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I wonder if, Texas this year, very low blitz rates. They didn't blitz a lot of guys. They didn't have to. They created a lot of organic pressure. You're going to be able to do that next year. But I'm with you now. You'll have the addition of, once again, depth at the edges, but also Anthony Hill at the second level, a guy that also excels in rushing the passer. And I can't wait to see what they do with the NASCAR package, who they bump inside. And last year it was Barron Sorrell. They bump him inside, put Colin Simmons out there with Trey Moore. Go back and look at a lot of those sacks. I believe Colin Simmons ended up with 9 sacks. 7 of them came in the NASCAR package. I mean, he was deadly. He's going to start now, but then it'll be interesting to see how they decide to construct it this season. But you got an embarrassment of riches in guys who can create havoc. And that's always been my big thing, man. You need havoc-minded players in your front seven that can create chaos. That's what Colin Simmons does every time he's out there. Trey Moore started doing it in the last 7 games of the season. I mean, that's where he got his 6.5 sacks or something like that in the last 7 games of the season. Really picked up. And then you're looking at, Colton Vasek, another guy that I think can also be a disruptor for you on that line. So I'm thinking about it. Maybe he's the guy you move to bump inside. I'm trying to think of who they would bump inside. Remember, initially I thought for the NASCAR package, I thought they would bump Alfred Collins inside. Remember, it was Vernon Broughton. They chose him because they figured he was, maybe a better pass rusher at times. Yeah. I wonder if it'll be Vasek that they decide to bump inside.
Yeah, I could see.
He's big. He's got that frame, man. He's just big.
And he's got contact aggression too, physicality.
Oh, I like that term. That's a good term. Contact aggression. Yeah. I agree.
Ethan Burke bump inside, maybe.
Ethan Burke can bump inside.
He's playing strong side. He and Vasek are going to play strong side next year.
Right. He did actually. You're right, Bobby. He did it a couple of times actually. He bumped inside with the NASCAR package at times too last season. Not you brought it up.
The sheer number of guys is really where Jerry, when you were talking about that, the guys that are coming back that we know that can get after the passer: Colin Simmons, Anthony Hill, and Trey Moore. Okay. Ethan Burke can get after the passer. Mm-hmm. Colton Vasek has shown in very limited reps he can get after the passer. Yep. Brad Spence has done it for another team.
Oh, yeah.
He had 4.5 sacks last year. Okay. Then what about other guys, Jerry and Rod? Zena Umeozulu, Justice Terry, somebody like that.
Lance Jackson in a NASCAR package.
Oh,
now that's awfully young, and I agree with that. I mean, I know, but to Jerry's point, they're starting to stack guys so that when one of your guys gets out or is injured, you don't want to see him injured at all. You know that, but you're starting to. This is where you become a great program. Georgia lost. Who did they lose? They lost Jalen Walker for a long time this year and still won a lot of games, still made the playoff. They lost these elite players and just kept putting in the next group and the next group. That's where Texas is getting ready to be. That's the feel for me. And when you can do that in a pass rush situation where 2 years ago we were begging for a sack, that's a big jump to make in 24 months.
Well, yeah. That was my point with Rod in this morning is Georgia could rush the passer from Michael Williams, Jalen Walker at linebacker edge, Raylan Wilson, that Chambliss off the edge as an outside backer. If they're bigs, Brinson and those guys weren't really passers. Now, Christian Miller was a disruptor, but they had a multitude of guys. Now, Texas had more sacks than they did because Georgia plays a little different, but Texas, I just look at them and say they're going to be able to rush the passer from so many different spots. And it's not like they bring a high rate of blitz pressures, but Rod, it's the threat of somebody not knowing where it's going to come from against you. To me, that makes you really dangerous. Is like, okay, well, Anthony Hill could rush the passer. Well, what if Brad Spence is in too? and he's playing middle backer on this series, and Anthony Hill's playing off more of the edge, and Colin Simmons off the other edge. And you're sitting there saying, well, where's this pressure going to come from? They have so many guys that can rush the quarterback. That's, to me, is when you kind of become scary as a pass rushing team.
Yeah, and I wonder if, that natural kind of organic pressure you're talking about, if it will change how they call the coverages. If you're getting, Colin Simmons screaming off the edge, Trey Moore, and you get, obviously more guys from different levels, Anthony Hill, that can rush the passer. If they will play more man-to-man, they didn't play a lot of man-to-man this year. That wasn't their thing. But when you know that the quarterback's only going to have 2.5 seconds max to be able to progress through reads, taking away the first read, the early read, and forcing him to have to make NFL throws under duress, maybe 2 out of the 2 quarterbacks a season are going to be able to make you pay for that, and that'll probably be, late in the season, in the playoffs. So that's, I wonder if that'll affect the amount of man coverage. We know Sark wants to go to a man-to-man, to more man-to-man. He wants to. That's just ideally what he wants to do. They haven't been able to do that. That's just not how they're built or constructed. They're recruiting some more athletes to be able to do that. But when we've had, Casey Hampton and Sean Rogers on the defensive line, they didn't care, even with a young cornerback like me. I was a starting sophomore corner. They didn't care about playing a lot of man-to-man. The truth is, the quarterback wouldn't make it more than 3 seconds. And if I could just cover for 3 seconds, maybe 2.5 max, Casey Hampton and Sean Rogers was going to be in that dude's face, so none of it really mattered. And I always wonder if you got that. So obviously that's interior, but if you got that kind of presence where you can collapse a pocket quickly on every passing down, I'd play a little bit more man-to-man.
You know who you want to be? The guy lined up next to Colin Simmons or the guy opposite Colin Simmons next year? Because you know how much attention he's going to draw after this season, what he's going to draw next year. You want to be the guy lining up next to Simmons or the guy opposite Simmons. You are going to have some favorable matchups.
Great point.
They're going to be rolling towards you.
Slide protection. Slide to the left. Slide to the right. Wherever Colin Simmons is, slide to the left. Yeah. Slide to protection.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. We'll see how it goes. Look, I think that one of the bright spots, though, and this is what we were really getting at, Jerry, this morning, is what are the strengths of the 2025 team going to be?
Yeah,
getting after the passer will help, and it's going to help. We said the secondary as well, as you lose guys like Makuba and Jade Barron, who've just played so much football that they were really bright. Hey, speaking of the secondary, Jerry. Couple of guys you wanted to talk about today from the high school recruiting ranks, both from the same high school. One is a University of Texas legacy, James Lott's son, Jalen, big-time player over at Frisco's Panther Creek, and his teammate, a safety, Donovan Webb. Both those guys looking at the Longhorns. I'll let you talk about them as we let Rod B., our own DBU member, kind of break down their film and footage a little bit here.
One of my favorite things to do is just to throw a DB video out that Rod hadn't seen before and just let him react to it. So we're going to do that with Jalen Lott while I talk about Texas recruiting on the road. Now, Texas staff will be by Panther Creek next week. This is Jalen Lott here. He plays receiver and corner for Panther Creek up in Frisco. Those of you that seen the new PGA Tour, PGA headquarters, that's the high school right next to it. But the Texas staff on the road, there were about 5 of them in SoCal yesterday. And I think Kyle Flood's in Houston, seeing Nicholas Robertson at Klein High today. Johnny Nanson's at Maid Creek, seeing Kosio Paula, the linebacker, today. And a lot of Texas staff, I think Kenny Baker see maybe Jamion Winfield and Richardson today. That may be early next week, but I think that's today because he'll be in Atlanta next week with the Shard Choice. But Texas staff out and about, seeing top guys. We have some questions start. I'm going to get to those recruiting questions. But Jalen Lott, Rod, look, and for the fans that haven't seen him out there, Jalen Lott is, I think, one of the top two-way players in the country in the 26 class. Plays corner, plays receiver, return kicks. Won state in the high long jump last year. I believe he high jumped like 6'8". He's got a ways to catch pops, Bobby, but he's going to be on 5 track events again this spring for Panther Creek, and is one of the very best players in the country. I don't know what Rod sees early on, but we'll let this kid's about 6 foot, looks like he's still growing, has length, He's got explosiveness, but he's got ball skills. He's got reactive quickness too. And as you can see, he's not scared to stick his hat in there either.
Yeah, he looks longer than 6 foot too, man.
I know.
I was like 6 foot. I was actually a little surprised. Like, he's just 6 foot. He looks longer out there. He's got, I mean, you can tell he's got elite speed. I mean, he can separate. I'm looking at this as a receiver, but I know he plays both ways. I saw a couple of snaps of him playing corner. Got really nice hips. I mean, fluid hips. That's something I look for. And all DBs don't have those kind of hips too, man. But he's got some really sweet hips. Love his footwork. Just as an athlete overall, setting up defenders. So I mean, he's a nice looking athlete. I mean, he's a really good looking athlete. And the track stuff aside, I didn't even know he won the long jump.
Yeah, he did.
Rod, watch this.
It was explosive.
Just sits on it.
Yeah.
You see what I'm getting at, the explosiveness out of that cut or out of that drive. Yeah.
And he's a guy who has been recruited by receiver by some schools, defensive back or athlete as by others. In Texas, Terry Joseph's in contact with him the most. They're recruiting him as a corner/athlete. Not out of question he plays receiver, but obviously he's got a lot of upside as a corner. And I talked to him last week when I was in the DFW. He doesn't care which position. I do think Texas is in a good spot for him, but you got to go finish these recruitments. Just because him and Caden Finley, the parents played at Texas, doesn't mean to sign him with Texas. You still got work to do, Bobby, in the NIL day and age. You got to finish these recruitments. But he is a really, really talented kid. And we're about to take a look at the safety on this team, which reminds me of Makuba.
Does it matter where he played? Does he want to play offense? Most of these guys who are elite athletes like this, they see.
Yeah, I think Jalen's open for whichever position. I think he knows a lot of upside at corner. Now, this is Donovan Webb, Rod. This is a junior safety at the same school, return man. Look, he's one of the best playmakers I saw this year out on the road. He is about 6 foot, 175. He's all muscle. Like, this kid's all muscle. But he's coming to Texas Junior Day on the 25th with Jalen Lott. Texas hasn't offered him yet, but I keep playing this just for the fans to see this kid. I mean, he's had over 100 tackles from the safety spot 2 years in a row. I think like 9 or 10 interceptions, like 5 fumble recoveries, multiple kick returns. This guy reminds me of Makuba. And I know it's recency bias because I've just seen Makuba, but I'm talking frame-wise. He's not the thickest guy, but he is just a damn good football player now, and he is always around the ball, guys. Ohio State, Oklahoma, Ole Miss, some of the recent offers for Donovan Webb.
His dad's also a high school coach. Was he coach girls basketball?
Yes.
But he's been around the coaching life a little bit, so he's got a little bit of that going to him as well. I was thinking about this as we look at it, whether it's Jalen Lott or Donovan Webb. Panther Creek, Jerry, I mean, how many high schools are even in Frisco now? I mean, look, is it 10?
I think it's 9 with 10 being built. I could be off on that one. It may be 8 with 9 being built. It's hard to keep up. I mean, but they're reaching double. Rod, watch how he plays the run. This kid, he's a physical player, man. He's just a playmaker, man. He's just, look, he's just always around it. Somehow he finds a football. He's just always around the ball, man. It's like Quandre Diggs was like that in high school, right? It's just like, where's the ball? Well, that's where Quandre is going to be.
Yep, I agree. Some guys, I've played with guys like that. They have a knack for it. Nathan Vasher was like that. The ball finds those guys, and it's really because of their instincts. They just smell it, but they process things quicker and they see it. They're pre-snap diagnosis. And being a coach's son, that makes sense. And I didn't say, it's not a sport, but just because their attention to detail. It's about, athletic instincts overall, what Bill Walsh described it as. He's got those.
Yeah, I like him a lot. Hope that Texas gets him a chance if he's coming to Junior Day, as Jerry mentioned, as well. All right. Hey, guys, need to say thank you and want to say thank you to one of our key sponsors this whole past year, and they've signed on for next year as well, and that's our friends over at Flat Creek Estate Winery. Rod B., do you mind telling the folks about Super Texan?
Oh, my pleasure to tell folks all about Super Texan. They have a variety of wines there at Flat Creek, but Super Texan is their most award-winning of their wine selections, folks. It's actually available at your local specs. I saw a display of Flat Creek actually at our local Central Market here, so the good word is getting around. The most awarded wine in Texas, folks, actually the vineyard really close to Austin, Texas. Flat Creek Estate Winery is just minutes from downtown Austin, and they've won award after award for that wine, Super Texan. My wife loves it. She loves it, actually. And her mom's, my mother-in-law, she loves it too. They're big fans of it over the holidays. We enjoyed some Super Texan. So it's great. They have a number of different wines that I think are fantastic. The rosé is great, very refreshing. Got a Pinot Grigio that's really, really good there from Flat Creek Estate Winery. Not only do they produce some of the best premium wines out there, they also a gorgeous venue available for barbecues and wine tastings every single weekend. Perfect for a date with your significant other or a weekend getaway with that very special significant other. That's Flat Creek Estate Winery, flatcreekestate.com. We appreciate Flat Creek Estate Winery for sponsoring our Friday live stream and being a part of the On Texas football family.
All right, we're going to go to the chat line here quickly and just answer some questions right out of the gate. Donald Britt, when is the regular signing period in February? That's the first Wednesday in February, but there's nobody out there that Texas is recruiting in the high school ranks right now. That is in the class of 2025.
You know what's crazy, Donald Bird? I started that because I hadn't even thought about that signing period in weeks. It's a distant memory, Bobby, unless you had a coaching change.
Yep. Hey, Jerry, we don't. This is from Joe Z. Any portal visitors this weekend? We don't know of any at this time. It doesn't mean that there might not be, though. But as of this moment, I don't know that Texas is going to have a portal visitor this weekend. You agree with that, Jerry?
Yeah, I mean, we'll double check again late this afternoon, but we can't say for sure no, but we haven't heard of anything yet.
Okay, MJF wants to know. I meant to ask this morning: at what age are high-level high school recruits hiring agents? As sophomores, are agents swarming them and campuses? Well, they can't swarm high school campuses. It's different. It's more like they're in your DMs.
And
and I will add this: high school players are actually not hiring the agents. So they're just trying to go out there and get a deal for a player and then try to get the player to hire them after the fact. That's how this.
Gotcha.
That's how it works. It's not like the NFL where you go out and choose your agent and then the agent goes out there and works for you. These agents are just throwing everything against the wall and then trying to come to you with a deal. It's a backwards situation. As sophomores, I mean, look, I'm sure there are freshmen in high school that have already been approached, and earlier than that, even probably, Jerry. Doesn't mean that they're actually working with an agent, et cetera. Used to be, and Jerry, this is where back in the early 2000s, late 1990s, some of these guys that worked with them for their skills and training tried to also front as agents of a sort.
Yeah.
Kind of got recruiting sideways in the state of Texas in particular, but also in the state of Florida as well. Next question, Whitney Gaddison asks, what's the word on Manny Muhammad's rumors were circulating that he's going to the end of the portal? He did not enter the portal. We reported that yesterday. Manny Muhammad did not. This one from Too Broke to Pay Attention. After everything that has transpired in the portal and we retained almost all of our talent, I feel great about next year. Also, coupled with the recent recruiting news, we are on our way to the Natty. Look, a combination of retaining talent plus adding the number one ranked recruiting class in Texas or in the country. What else do you want from Steve Sarkisian and his group? Right? I mean, what else is there, Rod or Jerry?
I mean, they still have a couple of portal needs left, and that'll answer a couple of questions here. But tight end, they would like a tight end. Jordan Washington, I think, is going to be the starter. Look, if Nick Townsend was a midterm, I'd say, dude, watch out for him as the number 2 guy. Now it's going to come down to coming in the summer. How quick can he pick up the system? But I'm telling you, those 2 guys, the future with those 2 guys athletically, watch out. Spencer Shannon, can he take that in year headed into year 3. Can he take that step and be an inline guy for you? Emery Winston's on campus. I see him very similar to Juan Davis over time, maybe with a little more downfield pass catching ability. But Texas has a need a tight end. I mean, they've brought a tight end in. They didn't think he was big enough. He just didn't fit exactly what they were looking for once he got on campus. Then wide receiver, speed wide receiver, then a couple of D linemen in the portal. And Rod, I mean, and we said this morning, depending on what happens at the corner position in the spring could determine, do they look at a corner in the portal potentially? So what do some of these young bucks, Santana Wilsons, Cade Phillips of the world, what do some of these guys do this spring? I think is going to be big in that decision making.
Yeah, because you lost. Yeah, you lost Gavin Holmes. You didn't expect to lose Gavin Holmes, and I think so. Gavin Holmes declaring for the NFL draft, and then but Javion Cole was also on that list of guys transferring. So just in terms of depth at the cornerback spot, I'm with you. Right? If you don't see one of those young guys ascend during the spring, I can see them just getting some depth there. But they've recruited so many DBs in the last couple of classes.
Yes.
I think, man, we're talking like 5, 6 DBs in each of the last 2 classes, something like that. I think that they're waiting on these guys to ascend, and they want some guys from these last 2 classes to really take a hold of that spot opposite Malik Muhammad. Kobe Black being, I think, the favorite probably to step up and be that guy.
Let me say this. I do think they're going to go for one tight end in the portal. Spencer Shannon is another guy that's playing for him right now. He could be an inline guy for Texas, in my opinion. The other spots outside of that tight end, 2 defensive linemen, 1 to 2 more defensive linemen, maybe. Interior in particular. We talked about that. Yeah. 1 wide receiver, an older guy that kind of has the adult in the room to go with a DeAndre Moore and Ryan Wingo. Although those 2 guys have a lot of experience now at Texas. And then the cornerback. Don't forget, though, here's another one, kicker.
Yes.
Yeah, man.
Because that would mean, theoretically, Texas might get as many as 6 more players from the portal in the spring. So this may be a heavy portal period for Texas in the spring after spring ball is complete. Texas has already grabbed 4 players from the portal, a punter, Jack Bowmeister, the 2 defensive tackles, Travis Shaw and Cole Brevard, as well as the linebacker, Brad Spence. So there's still some work to do. How deep does Texas go? Does Texas just take 1 defensive lineman instead of 2? Does Texas pass on a cornerback, Rod, to your point, because they've got some young guys they want to that are ready to go? Or same could be said at wide receiver. One of those young guys ready to go as well.
I want to say this based on what you said, Bobby. If Texas just goes for 1 more D tackle in the portal, Texas fans will know that one thing: the freshmen are going to be really, really good.
Yep.
And I'm not saying difference makers in year 1, but I'm just saying that means they're like, yep, him, yep, him, yep, him. We'll just get we'll use our experience early in the season as these guys, 1 or 2 of these guys gets ready to give us real snaps and add to that depth. But if Texas only takes 1 more D lineman in the portal, that means all 3 of the freshmen are looking really good, in my estimation.
Ooh, this is a really nice question from Roger G that I haven't thought enough about. I know somebody said this. How many starters will Texas have that are seniors next year?
Oh, that's hard to keep up with. Yeah.
I've got
Weisner
offense.
No, Weisner was a sophomore.
Yeah, I've got 2 on offense. Cole Hudson and DJ Campbell. Now, I think one of them, they may both have a redshirt year, but by their recruiting year, they'll be seniors.
Right.
If Connor Robertson steps up and earns a spot, he'd be a senior by recruitable year as well. On defense, Trey Moore, no doubt about it. Ethan Burke, Michael Taft, and then also Travis Shaw and Cole Brevard.
Yeah, not many.
No. So more on defense than offense, though. Be a young offense as of right now. So that's why a tight end and a wide receiver that are older might make a lot of sense for Texas.
Yeah.
Y'all agree with that? Mike,
Yeah.
just to get some more age and experience. We saw how Makuba mattered and Matthew Golden mattered this year in that regard. If they're available, Texas has got really good talent right now, so they got to be somewhat aware or alert of what that means. Kenny Joe, he asks about not necessarily tight end. We talked about that, but do you believe Texas will go after another running back in the portal? Jerry, Rod, we talked a little bit about this. Doesn't it depend somewhat on where they think Cedric Baxter is going to be this time? And
got to
basically.
I think it's twofold. Where's Cedric Baxter, and how good does James Simon look? Because and I'm not discounting Ricky Stewart, but he needs time physically, like Trey Wisner did, right? He's built more like your strong wide receiver than he is a running back. Just like Wisner was coming out of high school, he needs time. James Simon's a little different. He's 5'11", 202 pounds. His dad says, we've had on the show a couple times, things will be 218 when he's fully baked there. But he comes in, Rod, Bobby, as a guy, and I'm not comparing him to Cedric Baxter, but he comes in ahead of the game in pass pro and understanding, because his father was a long-time coach and a running back. If he has a really good spring, that I think will probably quiet any talk, but unless Cedric Baxter has a setback.
Hey, Rod, I want to ask you this. Jay Lee says, am I wrong when I tell people they shouldn't rely on Baxter, though, for the solution to the run game? Honestly, I'd be shocked to see him. This is what Jerry's talking about. Should they go ahead and go to the portal regardless? Just to be 100% sure, because you don't know. Maybe you see it in the spring, Jerry. I mean, maybe.
But as a coach, it is your job. You can hope for the best, but you got to plan for the worst. And the worst would be that he's not on schedule, and it takes him a while to get back to full potential. It takes him a while to get back to being that explosive, dynamic version of himself. So I kind of agree with that. I actually think it's a smart way to go, just as a contingency plan. Then if it works out, great. You got extra depth at running back. But this year, we all agree, your offense was limited in a sense when Cedric Baxter now. So maybe get a guy you think can fulfill the skill set you may lose if he's not available.
I just don't think the problem too is Cedric Baxters don't grow on trees.
They do not.
That's like replacing a 220-pound tailback is not, just snap of the finger. It takes a little doing, right? Those guys don't come along all the time. Jesse Matarazzo, I hope I'm saying that right, Jesse. Do you see the starting wide receivers right now, Wingo, Moore, and Livingstone? If so, who plays more Z? Rod, what do you think? I mean, two big guys out there really in Livingstone and Wingo. You wouldn't think Moore plays that. What do you think?
He actually, Sark likes his wide receivers to learn all the different positions, so they're interchangeable, so he can move those guys around. In terms of who plays more, like the X and the Z would be the one you move around more. I'm assuming that'd be Moore.
You think so? Not Moore, not Wingo.
Well, in terms of that, okay, we're talking about like the slot as the Z, or are we talking about?
I thought the outside was Z, but
no, you go to X, but the Z is the one that's off the line of scrimmage. Is my point. Off the line of scrimmage, you can motion the guy. You can't motion the guy that's on line of scrimmage. So you can motion that guy and move that guy around. That's the point of being the Z. The big point of it is I can move that guy around more.
I think that's going to be Wingo.
Stationary, that's going to be your guy. Yeah,
I think that's going to be Wingo, guys.
The guy
you think they'll make that change this year from Moore?
Yeah,
could be.
I mean, I see Wingo as very much Arch's Matthew Golden.
Okay.
Where Quinn's had Golden. I think Wingo with more downfield explosive ability is going to be Arch's Matthew Golden. That means that Parker Livingstone's competing with a Khalik Lockett on the outside, because the back shoulder, Rob, we've been talking about this back shoulder fade, back shoulder balls coming back into the offense next year. Yeah. It hasn't been there. That's not what Quinn was. But that's coming back this year. People can take that one to the bank. So it's going to be interesting to see what they do with that. Could Jamie French come in and be that good to where he could play a Matthew Golden type of role? I don't know. Matthew Golden, 2 years of experience.
Yeah,
That's
and then maybe
intelligence too, by the way.
Yeah,
that's true.
It requires an intelligence isn't even the right word. Astuteness.
That's true.
Like that's not. You don't have to be like have a 150 IQ. You just have to be football smart. I think.
No, that's a good point. Yeah, and just to specify, because I don't know how different offenses do it. You have an H and an X. That's usually your slot. Your Z is your off the ball outside receiver, and then you have your X who is on the line. So your two other guys can move around, and that's big in Sark's offense. I believe Matthew Golden, as you pointed out, Jerry, he was the Z, if I'm not mistaken, in this offense, or whatever. Initially on the depth chart, whatever. Yeah.
All right. This one, sorry about that. Wrong one. This from Justin Yarbrough. With winter workouts coming up, who are some players y'all expect to make big leaps physically, and which guys need to make biggest leaps? I will say this. I'll let y'all get into this, and we'll talk about this question. Winter workouts do not start officially this week or next week, but the week after. That's my understanding. A week from Monday is when winter workouts go full on.
You know what? The guys who are going to make big leaps right out of the gate are going to be Lance Jackson and Justice Terry. Those are big frame guys that are coming into college football and are now going to be on a nutrition and with Torrey Beckton, Rod. Those guys, I mean, if Lance Jackson's not 280 next year, I'll be surprised. In long-term, 295. But that's 15 pounds for him. 280. I mean, I posted on ontexasfootball.com photos of him last year versus this year. That's in high school. I mean, and then Justice Terry's going to gain 15 pounds. There's no doubt he's going to gain 15 pounds. As far as the guys who are returning on this team, what do y'all think?
Well, let me say this. Rod, you got to get going. Is that correct? I just got a text from you. You got to get going. You had something to attend to. What you have anything you want to add before we let you go here?
In terms of guys, obviously you guys can break that down, but I think position-wise, in terms of guys who are going to need to make the biggest leaps, are going to be in certain positions like your O-line, and I think a lot of the skill positions on offense, right? Tight end, and tight end to me is probably where I need to see the biggest leap. I need to see a Jordan Washington or is it Will Randall? I don't actually even know. Now that Mari Nabas, it may be just tight end. Whoever, maybe it's Jordan Washington. Is he the guy? It could be him. Sark says the second most important position in his offense. And right now, it seems for the last few years, we've known who that guy's going to be. And then we don't know who he's going to be this year. That's big. Yeah.
I agree. Rod, you be good, buddy. Let's continue this talk, if you don't mind, during right now. And
I love this question.
I wrote down a few names. Jordan Washington's certainly one. But when I think of what he's talking about here is making a big leap physically. I'm thinking about guys like Barron Sorrell that we kept seeing improve over time. I'm interested to see what Alex January looks like. This time in 3 or 4 months.
I'll throw one.
Go ahead.
Ty Anthony Smith.
Right. That's what I'm talking about. Not necessarily just the incoming guys, because their bodies are naturally going to change.
Right.
Like the guys that we saw a year ago that we know have a lot of ability, and now they've been living it for a year, essentially.
Yeah.
What do their bodies look like? Because then that gives you a sense, Justin Yarbrough, in my opinion, of where they're going long term or where they can go long term. Zeno Miazulu is another really good one.
Filsami.
Xavier Filsami. How about Nate Kibble? Guys like that, Jerry, that came in and you don't know necessarily where they're going to be. But I'll give you an example of one that did it this year, Trevor Gooseby.
Yeah.
A year ago, Trevor's always had size to him. He's starting to fill out. And those kind of leaps are what we're talking about.
There's one. Brandon Baker, Bobby. Brandon Baker.
Yeah, how he's going to look.
Yeah.
You know, long story short. So good stuff. Hey, before we go forward, I want to say thank you one time to our friends over at South Point Dodge. Texas football fans, score an easy extra point this season when you get to the point at South Point Dodge. South Point Dodge has more than 600 vehicles in stock, and their award-winning sales staff doesn't do games or gimmicks. They just get straight to the point by getting you the very best deal. Make sure you check out their selection of Dodge Ram pickup trucks. Score big today at South Point Dodge. Come see us off I-35 in South Austin or at southpointdodge.com. Get to the point at South Point Dodge. South Point Dodge is Austin's automotive everything. Looking to sell your car? Get South Point's best offer over the phone or online. That's southpointdodge.com. Thank you to the Stark family for sponsoring On Texas Football. Jerry, got a couple other questions that I think we can get in here and talk a little bit. Static Sound. Is Bert Auburn still on the team? I heard he was coming back before they made the kicker change. My understanding he's still on the team. The question is whether or not he's going to have a starting job next year.
Right.
That's where we're at right now, right?
Yeah. See what happens with the competition in the spring. And again, look, that's one of the things we've talked about. And I'm not saying he will hit the portal, but there will be other guys hit the portal after the spring that maybe don't win a job. Bobby, maybe get beat out by a younger player in the depth chart somewhere. But as far as Auburn, did not go into the portal, still on the team. We'll be competing with Will Stone this spring.
Ryan Nelson, how old is Andre Kojo now? I think he just had his 19th birthday. Is that right?
Just turned 19. Because for those that don't know, his mom moved him to Austin as a senior in high school at 16 days, 11 months, and 28 days, I think it was. So he's just now turning 19. He's one of those guys, too, who could take a big step. I mean, he's one of those guys that, because he's so young, that, 3 years into this thing, if he's just patient, he's going to look like a totally different human being than he did when he showed up at 16, 11 months, and 28 days. He's one that just has to keep having patience and developing. He's got good feet and good ability.
And staying after it.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, not just patience, but focused while being patient on it. Thank you, Jeremy Daniel, for the super chat. Wow, nice of you. Very nice of you. Great season. Lots of fun. Who are the top 2 or 3 recruiting targets for this next class? Who are the must-gets in y'all's mind? I love Jalen Lott. Jerry, you've been a big John Turntine guy from day one. That's the big offensive tackle. We talked about Jalen Lott a little bit. Who are a couple of the others that you think are those must-get type guys or top targets? Now, outside of Diabella, by the way, who's already committed.
Who AJ Milwee went to see last night. By the way, Georgia offered Diabella today, so recruiting continues. I mean, everybody's going to keep going after the top guys. That's when you're getting really good players. Look, I'm throwing a new one in there. A Turntine's been my must-get since first time I saw him as a sophomore. I think the guy's – I don't want to throw the term out. He's going to be elite. Elite, in my opinion. Watch out for Jamion Winfield from Richardson, guys. He moved in from Meridian, Mississippi, and it's not recency bias. This is just years of experience doing this. He walks in, I see him. We've seen the tape. We've played his tape. 6'3.5", listed at 275, 280. He walks in and he looks like he weighs 275. He's actually 297. So this tape, and I think producer Matt's bringing this up, Jamion Winfield, who Texas recently offered. They're working on getting him the junior day on the 25th. He's going to A&M this weekend. Ole Miss, everybody's trying now. LSU, everybody's been through offers. But this guy I think is going to end up being one of the guys, one of the very top kids. This is Jamion Winfield. So this kid's playing at about 285, 290 this season. He's 297 right now. He moved in July, so moved into a new school, new scheme, new coaches, never met any of them, but you cannot teach the quickness. He has the length, 80-plus inch wingspan, almost 11-inch hands, great flexibility, and he hasn't even scratched the surface. This guy's a pretty scary prospect down the line.
You know who he looks like to me, just watching him? Is Peter Woods.
Yeah.
That's that the quick off the ball, get off the Clemson defensive tackle that Texas thought might jump in the portal at one point, but ended up staying with Clemson. This is a big one.
If you look at his stance, he's not even close to maximize his athletic ability in his stance. Like his stance is inconsistent. Sometimes the knees drop too low to really be an explosive player. So he has to have a hesitation movement before he explodes. But he's just so naturally gifted. And guys, he's just bigger than you think when you see him in person. He's going to be 6'3.5", 310 with that 80-inch wingspan and those 11-inch hands and probably running in the 4.8s. And he's got the natural strength and power right there. I mean, he's just now starting to find the weight room. This guy has a ton of upside. Somebody said Tyler Atkinson. Absolutely Tyler Atkinson as an out-of-state linebacker. I mean, he's the top target. But this kid, as far as in-state players who weren't on the map before this season because he lives somewhere else, he's going to end up a top 5 prospect in this state, if not top 3, in my opinion.
Interesting. Hey, Jerry, a couple of questions here that I think we should get to here before we call it an afternoon with the Longhorn live stream here. McCoy Rowley, how do you feel about Trey Owens as QB2 in the event that Arch gets injured? Any news on his development? I'll share what I know. They like Trey Owens. I mean, I think Sark's very happy with his quarterback group and where they're going, not just with Arch Manning, but also Trey Owens and now KJ Lacey. Texans in a situation, Jerry, where I think that, Trey Owens plays, and I want to try to say this the right way. He plays with a moxie that feels a little bit older.
Yeah.
Hope that makes sense. He feels like he can handle the situation, like the situation won't be too big for him. And for that reason, I feel pretty good about Trey Owens, who's only going to be I guess he'd be a true sophomore by year, but a redshirt freshman next year. I get the feel or the sense that they feel pretty confident about where they're at with him, in part because how he handles himself on and off the field. You agree with that?
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think it's a big spring for him because he's not going to be talked about, right? It's going to be all Arch all the time. But to the point of that question, it's a big spring for Trey Owens because he's a play away. Like he's designated survivor, right? I mean, so this is a huge spring for him. This is going to be more reps than he's ever had, and he's got to make the most of those reps. KJ Lacey will be the number 3, but I mean, look, he's designated survivor, so it's a huge spring for Trey Owens to continue his progress and his ascension in the scheme. But again, here's where there's some similarities with Arch and Trey in this scheme moving forward, Bobby. The back shoulder balls. They're very similar, I think, in the throws they make that are strengths of theirs.
They both drive.
The play calls don't have to change when the quarterback changes necessarily, except Trey Owens isn't going to play outside the pocket.
They both drive the ball downfield.
Yeah.
They're not a let's touch the ball downfield. They're a drive. Both of them are drive the ball down the field quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Your heavy play action, see what you can get. Then line it up and put it in there. All right. Couple other questions. Somebody, Jay Lee's asking about whatever happened to Velton Gardner's eye. I think he scratched his cornea, I think.
I don't even know.
It happened in a practice. Didn't even happen in the game. Static Sound. Who will have a breakout season like Matthew Golden? Boy.
I got Ty Anthony Smith.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, you're so high on that young man. And that is not an easy, with the addition of Brad Spence, that's not an easy breakthrough.
No.
In my opinion. So that's one to watch.
Jordan Washington would be the other.
Yeah.
And here's the reason I say Jordan Washington. It's not height, weight, all that we've talked about with him, the play he made in the spring game. I go back to sometimes if you follow what these coaches say and you go back to what they said a few months ago, what did Jeff Banks say about Jordan Washington? He's going to be a great player. He didn't even play this year. He said that in the press conference.
Yeah. I'm looking at it, and I want to say the guy that might come out of nowhere a little bit. I'm gonna go with a little different. I'm gonna go with Colton Bosick.
Yeah, if he stays healthy, he's very talented.
Yeah, I'm gonna. I think that's a real possibility. Just because every time he has seen action, he's done something.
Yeah,
Jerry.
His snaps are productive.
Yes, and so I hope he's healthy. And cross your fingers that he's healthy the rest of the way, and I think we'll be in good shape. All right.
Yeah, by the way, a lot of people are saying DeAndre Moore. To me, I'm not even thinking about him. I think he's just going to be really good. I'm going to throw out a name not to sleep on, and I'm not saying he's going to win a job, but it's going to be better than people think, and it just depends on what happens. And watch out for Nate Kibble.
Yeah.
Watch out for Nate
him a little bit. Yeah. Yeah, you hear good things about him. All right, that's going to do it for this afternoon's Longhorn live stream. We'll be back tomorrow morning. We got a special guest for Saturday conversation. Rod B and I are going to sit down with none other than former Longhorn assistant coach Tim Brewster. Hope you guys enjoy it. We'll talk about a little VY action, about the new rules of NIL and how it's affecting the transfer portal as well as roster construction. Should be a good time for everybody. Always a pleasure to visit with Coach Brewster. All right, for Jerry Hamilton as well as Rod Babers, thank you also to our sponsors, Flat Creek Estate Winery, as well as South Point Dodge. For Jerry, I'm Bobby Burton, and our producer, Matt Hudson. Hook 'em.